Hello and welcome to Planted Nutrition. My name is Luke. I'm a qualified nutritionist, and in this video today we're talking about iron on a plant-based diet. And why is this important? It's because iron is the most common nutrient deficiency worldwide. It disproportionately affects women because of the menstrual cycle and the loss of blood, and iron is like a really important part of our blood. It makes up hemoglobin, which is the molecule that carries oxygen through our body and gives our cells the oxygen that we need to create energy and feel good and actually move through life. So it's incredibly important, and I know that it's a concern for people on a plant-based diet. You might have people saying to you, where are you going to get your iron? And just to start out, you can totally get enough iron on a plant-based diet. There's actually plant-based foods that have more iron than beef, which a lot of people think of as like the holy grail for iron consumption. But it's true also that the iron in plant-based foods is a little bit less absorbable than the iron in animal foods, for example, because it's bound up within fiber and other parts of the plant. So it's a little bit harder to digest. This is called like heme iron in animal products or animal foods, and non-heme iron in plant-based foods, just in case you hear about those words so you know what they mean. And just some general tips for improving iron absorption on a plant-based diet. First of all, just focusing on iron-rich foods. So lots of whole grains, legumes, and certain vegetables are really good sources of iron. So things like beans and chickpeas are really good. Spinach is a vegetable that's really high in iron, and I'm going to put a link in the description to a list of plant-based foods that are rich sources of iron, if that's something that you want to look into further. And it's also important to understand that there's certain factors in our diet that can influence our ability to absorb and utilize iron. So the first tip is make sure you're getting enough vitamin C with your meals. Our bodies need vitamin C in order to absorb and utilize the iron from plant-based sources. So for example, you could think about, imagine we're having Mexican beans with like black beans, for example, which are a really good source of iron. So we could have some lemon juice on there. We could have slice up some capsicum or bell pepper, get that in there as well. So those are really good sources of vitamin C, and they're going to help us to absorb that iron more easily. There's also evidence that having things like onion and garlic can improve iron absorption as well. So again, in our beans, we could cut up some onion and garlic and get them in there as well. But I mean, you can do this with any meal that you're having. So thinking about including a diverse range of different foods, then we're going to be getting that iron, we're going to be getting that vitamin C, and we're going to be getting a whole host of other beneficial nutrients that we need to thrive. And it's also important to understand there's certain things that can inhibit or lower our body's ability to absorb iron. So there's certain compounds found in black tea and coffee, such as tannins, and they can actually reduce our body's ability to absorb iron. So if you are concerned about your iron intake, or you're wanting to get your iron levels up, it could be a good idea to maybe avoid having tea or coffee with a meal, maybe have it a little bit before or a little bit after, just so you can give your body that best chance to absorb the iron that you're getting. And if you are struggling with maybe lower iron levels and maybe not feeling super energized and you'd like to get that up, it is also totally viable to look at supplementing iron. And with iron supplementation, there can sometimes be a bit of like gastrointestinal problems. So maybe getting a little bit constipated or not feeling as good. And that is why I recommend this form of iron called iron bisglycinate. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. But this form has been studied and been shown to be linked to less gastrointestinal side effects. It's more easily absorbed than other common types of iron supplementation and associated with fewer side effects. And when you're supplementing iron, it's best to take it away from meals so that you can absorb it more effectively. Taking it maybe an hour before or after a meal is preferred. I'll pop a link in the description to one that I recommend. I have no affiliation with this brand, but this is just one that I've used with my clients and they've had really good results. So some other things that you can look into as well, some other little hacks for iron. One that's really cool, and I learned about this when I was studying nutrition, is that you can cook with cast iron cookware. So that's like a cast iron pan. It's literally made out of iron. And when we cook with cast iron pans, it actually puts a little bit more iron into our food. But getting a cast iron pan can actually be a really good way to slightly increase the iron content in the food that you cook and increase your iron intake. Another thing to look into are what some people call the superfoods of spirulina and chlorella. And these are types of algae that you can get either in a powder that you can add to smoothies or in like a supplement. They're kind of just condensed into a little tablet, but they are technically like a whole food. And they're super nutritious and nutrient dense. And to give an example of this, I want to talk about a case study of a client that I worked with. So she really wanted to eat a plant-based diet. She made the switch and was feeling so much better. Like in her body, she knew this was the right thing to do. She was losing weight. She had so much more energy. She was feeling really good, but her iron levels were low. Then it's important to note her iron levels were actually low before when she was eating meat. She's had like a lifetime history of struggling to get enough iron. And this isn't something to do with her plant-based diet, but unfortunately she went to a doctor, and the doctor, we know the average doctor doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of education about nutrition, and she was advised to start eating meat again. So lots of red meat to try and get her iron levels back up. Like that's a really basic recommendation that people give, but she was doing that, she was feeling worse, and her iron levels still weren't getting up. And so she kind of didn't know what to do. She didn't know where to turn, and she actually came to me for a session, and I explained to her about iron, helping to absorb it, things that can inhibit it, everything that I've just talked about here. And we've got her on a supplement and also a good dose of spirulina each day. We had blood tests before and then again after a month, and after just 1 month, her iron levels were back up in a healthy range, which she hadn't been in for decades, and she was just feeling so much better. Obviously, this is a story. This is one person. It's not necessarily going to be exactly the same for you, but I hope that you can use these tips in this video to improve your iron intake. Something that can be helpful as well if you are struggling is getting that blood test before and afterwards, and then you can see, okay, maybe I am feeling much more energized, and you have that result to prove, okay, for sure, I was low before, I wasn't feeling good, now I'm higher and I'm feeling better, and I'm pretty sure that was that iron. So it's more empowering to have that information to know for the future. Maybe you could continue to supplement, or maybe you could just continue focusing on getting these rich sources of iron and continue to test regularly, maybe if you're working with a healthcare provider or a nutritionist, dietitian, just to make sure that your levels are staying good and healthy. So I hope this video has helped you, maybe inspired you with that little story. It can get better. There are so many things that you can do to improve your iron intake. I know this is something that so many people struggle with, so hopefully this helps. If you are struggling with your nutrition or your iron intake and you need some more specific tailored advice to your situation, I'm giving out free 30-minute nutrition consultations. You can book that at the link in the description. It's completely free. I'm here to support you. So please use that if you feel called to it. Hope you've enjoyed the video. See you in the next one, and stay healthy, my friends.